Hey, what's going on? This is Troy, and this is the Planet 76 podcast, your source for Sixers news, highlights, hot takes, and more. Welcome to the show. Welcome, everybody, to Planet 76. And, folks, let me tell you, the stage is officially set. Welcome to our Sixers playoff preview round 1 edition episode of Planet 76. Michael, we know our matchup, the Toronto Raptors. How are we feeling over there?
It's gonna be interesting. I have some mixed feelings right now. I think those will get sorted out the next couple of days, but it's gonna be interesting. This is like I was talking about with Troy before we started recording. This is one of the most interesting matchups for the Sixers, but also for any team probably in recent history, because it's a series where you aren't really sure what's going to happen. And yeah, you can say that about a lot of other series, throughout past years in the NBA, but this year it just feels a little bit more unpredictable in the sense of, will the Sixers win? How many games will it go? Will the Raptors win? Will the Raptors win in 5 games? There's just a lot of
Right.
Will they sweep?
I don't know.
There's just a lot of. I think there's a lot of questions, a lot of things circulating to the point where you are really questioning what's going to happen. Because, like I also said to Troy, I said, people have been asking me on my page, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think the Sixers are going to do? My response is, I really don't know, because there's so much that goes into the Sixers winning this series, but also there's so much that goes into them furthering in the playoffs and having more success past the first round.
Well said, my friend. Well said. I think that when you mention, we don't know, there's uncertainty with this specific playoff series, in my mind, I think back to Sixers' recent memory, their playoff series of recent memory, and there's not a whole lot of that. There's just not. I think the only one is that comes to mind is that didn't go how I expected it to, is the Atlanta Hawks series last year. The year before that, in the bubble, losing to the Celtics, that was very much expected. I think Simmons got hurt in that series, and that was just not going to go well. The year before, obviously the matchup with the Raptors going 7 games, that was pretty much expected. That didn't surprise me how that went and how that ended. And then years previous with the Celtics and matchups like that. And, this one, it's going to be hard to be wow, I'm surprised, because I don't know what to expect, and the expectations are limited. So the Sixers finished the season 51-31 with a win tonight against Detroit. No Harden, no Embiid, no Harris, I believe, in that one as well.
No, Harris played.
Harris did play. Okay. And then the Raptors finished 48-34. So Sixers, Celtics, and Bucks end up with all 51-31. And the Celtics, I wasn't sure how it would work out in a 3-way tie. Celtics get the 2 seed. Very interesting nugget of information there. So let me just run through real quickly for our viewers, for our listeners, what this episode is going to consist of, and then we'll get the ball rolling. There's a lot to get into tonight for our round 1 preview episode. So first, we're just going to give some updates on the Raptors. If you're like, well, I don't know much about the Raptors since Kawhi left, well, we're going to tell you some things about the Raptors, some things to look for, and kind of how their season has gone. We're going to talk about what makes them good, what makes them bad, how the Sixers can capitalize, what they can take advantage of on the Sixers, that kind of thing. We'll give some hot takes and predictions, and we'll talk about the previous matchups the Sixers have had with the Raptors, and then we'll get into some fact or cap or over-under, as I'll test Michael's skill of being quick on his feet to see how he can quickly give an answer to this unpredictable series that we're heading into, and then some round 1 general predictions. But I think we should start with Joel Embiid. He won the scoring title.
Yeah. First big man since Shaq.
Come on now.
Shaq. I talked about it today, and so just as a preface, Shaq averaged 29.7 points, which, for the sake, why not? Let's round up, right? I mean, that just makes sense. You're down 0.3. So I said, Joel Embiid, the first big man to win the scoring title and average 30 points per game. And people were getting technical, while Shaq averaged 29.7. And, I get technical sometimes, but when someone else is doing it to you, you're just like, all right, dude, I get it. I get it, all right? Okay, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, to win the scoring title at the center position, to be over 30 points a game, and to lose your point guard from last year and everything that's gone into this season, and the slow start for Joel Embiid this season. I mean, he had a slow start. He just did. I don't know how many games it took him to get out of his funk, but and a slow start for Joel Embiid is different from a slow start for most NBA players, but he wasn't who he was last year at the start of the season, but he was that and more at the end of the year. So shout out to Joel Embiid's winning the scoring title, 30.6 points per game, and he's coming into the playoffs red hot, over 40 points in 3 of his last 4, and so that's just exciting. So let's just start with that. A little congratulatory props to Mr. Embiid. How about I run through some of these fast facts on the Toronto Raptors, catch us up to speed, and then you can just give your thoughts here on this too. So 48-34, they are red hot. If you haven't been checking the Eastern Conference standings over the last month and a half, they're 14-4 in their last 18 games. They have wins over the Suns, Nuggets, Sixers twice, Celtics, and Atlanta over that 18-game span. At one point in the season, 31 games in, they were 14-17. 14-17 to 48-34 is a big turnaround. All 5 of their starters, or their expected regular starting lineup, when healthy, average between 15 points and 22 points per game. That's saying something. I haven't checked, but I don't think any other NBA team is doing that. That's pretty impressive. They're the second in the NBA in fewest turnovers per game. They take care of the ball. They're 29th in assists per game. So I'm assuming that means a lot of ISO ball. Pascal Siakam, 22 a game, 8 boards, 5 assists. Fred VanVleet also leading the way, 20 points, 4 boards, 7 assists. And then Gary Trent Jr., averaging 18 a game this season. How about that? And then to round it out, they are 8th in defensive efficiency. And Fred VanVleet, I saw a quote from him 3 days ago. He said that they're the most annoying team in the NBA. They just like to get scrappy and play their brand of basketball. And they're middle of the pack offensive efficiency-wise, 15th. So of those, fast facts, quick updates on the Toronto Raptors and who they are and what we're getting into, what do you see? What catches your eye among those things?
Yeah, they're a very pesky team. The way they play is pretty unorthodox, especially compared to how other NBA teams play. They tend to use very strange lineups. Strange in the sense again of not many NBA teams play like that. Partially because it's not the norm. It's not the norm of NBA teams, but also because other teams aren't really equipped to play that way. Other teams don't have 3, 4, 5 wings who they can always rely on to make plays, whether it's scoring the ball or defensively or making plays for others, which shout out to Pascal Siakam and Scotty Barnes, who have done a really good job of that this season, and Fred VanVleet too, obviously. So that in itself makes them a tough matchup because it's hard to game plan for a team where you have 3, 4, 5 guys who are all wing players who can all do more than one thing, because most of the time in the NBA you have wings who are, good defenders or good shooters. Very rarely are they both. Very rarely do you see wing players who can do more than one thing, but also score the ball, create for themselves. You see a lot of wings. I'll use Thibault as an example just because it's an easy example. You see a lot of wings who kind of need offense created for them and can't really create for themselves or others. Pascal Siakam has done a great job of that this season. Scotty Barnes has done a great job of that this season. And it's something that's not easy to game plan for, because these players can score, but they can also do things for their teammates. And like I said, a lot of wings in the NBA can't do that consistently like these guys can. Even OG Anunoby, he hasn't played much, but he's a great shooter. He's gotten much better as a shot creator for himself, for his teammates. Pretty good scorer as well, and also another really good defender. The Raptors have like 3 or 4 really, really good defenders.
Yeah. Yeah, I think their balanced scoring attack stands out to me. To have 5 guys between 15 and 22 is saying something. It just is. And to your point of not knowing, who to game plan for and what that looks like, even game-to-game basis within a series is difficult. And I think that's, one of the keys to their success, obviously, this season. Last year was a down year. We know what they did, a couple years prior to that. But, they're just balanced. And there's not, they've got some guys that can really play basketball. You think of Siakam, you think of Fred VanVleet and a couple other guys. But, Gary Trent, they're not superstars. They're not household names as James Harden and Joel Embiid and Giannis or whatever, but they obviously get the job done, and they're very good at basketball. And so that's not a slight to them by any means. They're very, very talented, and they obviously play well together, because I don't think they're in the position that they're in now and on the streak that they're on now without being unified as one collective. So I'll say this too, their starting lineup, their starting lineup runs from height 6'1", 6'5", 6'7", 6'7", and 6'8". That's like a college team. That's probably the height of St. Peter's. Think about that. But they get the job done. I guess another testament to how they gang defend. But real quickly, before, if I forget to it later, so why don't we do it now? How does that work with Joel Embiid, who is a monster, it takes multiple guys, even if you're 7 foot tall, to be able to defend Joel Embiid. So what does it look like for the Raptors if they're to have any success against Joel?
Well, to highlight the point about them being an annoying team, which is what they really, that's a really good way to describe them. And Fred VanVleet would know better than anyone else. But to speak on that, I think is a major reason as to why the Raptors defend Joel Embiid so well. Obviously, he's a very physical presence, but when you have longer athletic guys, again, we speak to the wings of their team, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, Precious Achiuwa, OG Anunoby. These guys can definitely make things difficult for Embiid, especially when they double. And they can double without having to worry about giving up perimeter shots, because these guys are quick enough and long enough to recover if the ball gets to Maxey, Harris, Harden, Milton, whoever it is. These guys can make things difficult for Embiid in the paint, but also be able to recover enough to the point where they can get back on closeouts, close out on shooters, things like that, force guys inside, because then you still have inside presence, guys like Achiuwa. Even Siakam's a pretty solid interior defender. So their defense, I think everything really comes from their defense. And obviously, again, we make reference to the 8th in defensive efficiency. They are very good defensively. A lot of that because they play team defense, but also because they have some very good individual defenders who can also defend in different ways.
Yeah, team defense. And it's going to have to be their best showcase of team defense in this series because of who they're going up against in the NBA's scoring champ, Joel Embiid, and just the mismatch that he creates wherever he goes, whoever he plays. And so that's obviously a key to watch, and how effective will Joel be at passing out of doubles? Again, because even though they're going to double, even though they're going to bring different looks his way, they're going to be looking to pick off the pass when he passes to the corner. out of a double team and stuff because they're annoying. And so they're going to try and get under Joel's skin. They're going to try and frustrate and fluster the offense that normally is the Philadelphia 76ers and make them kind of out of their comfort zone a little bit. So, again, another note just on this series and, what could lead to some Raptors success is the fact that Matisse Thybulle won't be in Toronto. And so I think if yesterday's game against Indiana is any indication, it looks like Danny Green will be starting even the games at home, right? I mean, that's certainly how it looks to me.
From what we gather, which again is yesterday's game against the Pacers, it looks like Danny's going to be starting, and I'm not really opposed to it. I don't think it's a bad thing by any means. I think depending on lineup variation and depending on matchups, either guy can start. The Sixers have had success with Thybulle starting. They've had success with Green starting. I believe he was starting earlier in the year, and then Doc switched to Thybulle probably a month or so ago. And yeah, I think both are good options. I think Green again brings some shooting, which against the Raptors you're probably going to need. So I think it's good. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think I do as well. I think you might as well stay with the same starting lineup, in Philly and in Toronto, just for that consistency. And again, Matisse is going to do what Matisse does in Philadelphia. He just is. Off the bench, starting wherever he is, he's going to do what he does. And so we hope Danny Green can stay the same. Obviously more of a threat, obviously from three-point land than Matisse is. And so from an offensive standpoint, this certainly gives another threat out there that, again, if they're bringing doubles, they're bringing different actions to Joel Embiid. Well, there's 4 guys that are more than capable of knocking down a shot that are around him in that starting lineup. So that's also a big thing. So what do you think, and then we'll get to like the optimistic side, but what do you think, and I know that it's hard, but what challenges did the Raptors present the Sixers with, other than kind of some things we've already touched on? What are you concerned about, maybe?
Well, one thing, I know we kind of touched on it, but defending Embiid, kind of to narrow things down, is something the Raptors present that could provide some difficulty, because even last year, I mean, when the Sixers play the Raptors, they defend Embiid pretty well. They force him to take jumpers, which, yeah, he's a good jump shooter, but ideally you don't want him settling for jumpers. You don't want him only taking jumpers because we know he's a low post dominant player. That's where he thrives, where he scores most of his points. So the Raptors keeping him out of the post is an issue, and I know the Sixers can game plan for that. A lot of it just comes from Embiid being a bit more aggressive as opposed to settling for jumpers and really getting inside and drawing as much contact as possible. But also, I just think a guy like Siakam could be kind of a matchup nightmare, because even if the Sixers had Thybulle, I don't really know what Thybulle is going to do on any given night where Siakam decides to drop 30. I mean, yes, Thybulle's a great defender, but a guy like Siakam, 6'8", 6'9", very physical presence, who scores a lot of his points from the inside. It's something that could provide some difficulty for the Sixers. Again, Joel Embiid's a great defender, but I just think Siakam could potentially be a bit of a mismatch, especially on offense as a scorer.
Yeah. And then the flip side. So things that you think the Sixers can exploit, things that are to the Sixers' benefit. In my notes, I just put simply that we have Joel Embiid and the Raptors don't. But what are you confident about? You find out, Sixers are officially playing the Raptors. What automatically goes, okay, I'm confident here's why.
Well, I think having Joel Embiid in itself is something to be confident about. I'm just going to kind of echo what you have on the outline. The Raptors don't have a guy like Joel Embiid, and while they do provide some difficulty for him for Joel Embiid as a scorer inside. I still think if he's that physical presence that he is and that he naturally is, then it's going to be a lot harder for the Raptors to guard him, because I think a lot of times when Joel Embiid isn't as physical on offense, it makes the opposing team easier to defend him, because he's not in his natural habitat, if you will, and it makes it a lot easier to not stop him, because you're not going to stop him. You can't. The greatest scorers can't be stopped, but it's going to make things a lot more difficult for him if he's playing to his weaknesses as opposed to playing to his strengths. And even Harden, I'm confident in, because I know he struggled against the Raptors whenever it was Thursday night, but as far as I'm concerned, having Harden and Embiid in itself is something to be very confident in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is why we brought James Harden. This is it. You know what I mean? And the offensive shooting struggles and things that we've even touched on in the previous episode for James Harden. I mean, who cares right now? I mean, it's brand new season. Yeah. James Harden's debut in the playoffs. This is why we brought him. He's only been here. He's only played in 21 games with Joel Embiid where they've teamed up. And so you hope, one, that's enough for them to have that rhythm, and you just hope that they can go and get the job done. I will say that the Sixers are 14-7 in those 21 games when Joel and James Harden do play together. 2 of those losses are to Toronto. I believe 2... Correct me if I'm wrong. Another loss in that 7 was to the Bucks, and another one was to the Suns, where Joel and James both played. So you take out the Raptors, the Suns, and the Bucks. The Sixers are 14-3 when Joel and James Harden play together. But you don't want to lose to good teams, obviously, and that's what what we've done, obviously, in that little stretch there. But they fared pretty well together, and it's fun watching them on the floor together. Minutes are going to go up, and I'm just very, very curious as to how that duo is going to fare in the playoffs. All right. Let me run through again these previous matchups with the Sixers and the Raptors. So Raptors won the series 3-1 in the regular season. We have 2 very, very early season games, November 11th and December 28th. November 11th, the Raptors won by 6 without Pascal Siakam. We did not have Joel Embiid in that one. Maxey dropped 33. Van Vliet had 32. And then a couple days after Christmas, Sixers got their lone win against the Raptors this year, 114-109. Raptors did not have OG Anunoby or Fred Van Vliet. Embiid went off for 36, and Tobias Harris had a triple-double. March 20th, so less than a month ago, 93-88, Raptors won. No Fred Van Vliet, no OG Anunoby in that one either. Joel struggled, 21 and 6 for 20 from the field against the Raptors in that one. And then, as you mentioned just a moment ago, so a few days ago, April 7th, Raptors got a win by 5, 119-114. No Anunoby, no Fred Van Vliet. Embiid had 30. Siakam went off for 37, doing whatever he wanted to do. So a couple things stand out there. Fred Van Vliet's only played in 1 game against the Sixers this year, and he had 32 in that game. Joel Embiid has played in 3 games, and in 2 of the 3 games, he had over 30, and in the 3rd game, he struggled.
Yeah.
Just so you know. Why don't you give me your X factor for the series? Whether it's a player, whether it's a shooting percentage, whether it's Doc Rivers choosing to play someone over someone. Like, what do you think could play a factor in this series?
I think a guy like Harris could be a determining factor in the series. I mean, if he's playing well, if he's taking advantage of mismatches and taking advantage of things like catch and shoot open 3-pointers instead of dribbling for 10 seconds, then I think that's going to provide a lot of value for the Sixers. He's really at his best as a catch-and-shoot player, and when there's a guy like Harden in the playoffs and they have court, a lot of the defense is going to be drawn to Harden. I mean, Harris is going to need to be able to take advantage of open opportunities, which he did struggle with at the beginning when Harden got here. I think he's found a little groove. Hopefully he can ride that through. And, yeah, I think his shooting and scoring is going to be very valuable for the Sixers overall in the playoffs. Yeah.
Okay, I've got another starter who will probably be around the same, points per game range in Tyrese Maxey. Less of an offensive X factor. I think I know what I'm going to get from him, but I'm curious to how his defense will translate in the playoffs. Obviously, not a ton of action for him last playoffs. This is uncharted territory for Tyrese Maxey coming in against the Toronto Raptors this year, and Fred VanVleet can score the basketball. So I don't know, how much Maxey's going to be guarding him or on, someone else, but, how is he going to hold up on the defensive end? Would love to see him take on some of that Raptors, being annoying kind of thing and just play aggressive with no fear and just make some plays happen. I love when Tyrese pokes his hand in, gets a big rebound, or he gets a steal or gets a block or whatever. I would love to see that kind of aggression from him. I just think he's an X factor. I think he's big, and of course on offense that he can just keep it going. Literally, he's shooting at 42% from three this season. If that translates
on pretty
playoffs,
decent volume too. I think he's taking a little under 5 per game, which is pretty solid. Sometimes guys shoot like 50%, but they take 2 a game. So it's like, is it really that impressive? But he's shooting just under 5 attempts a game, so that's pretty solid. Yeah,
that is pretty solid. So we've got 3 or 4 more things to hit on, but first, let me tell you about, again, this new feature. Promote this new feature that we've got. So the Planet 765-minute recap is coming your way after each and every playoff game. So one of either myself, Troy, or Mr. Trust the Love, Michael, will produce a playoff recap game episode about each game in 5 minutes or less. That'll be hopefully posted the night of each game. And so game 1 against the Toronto Raptors, you can look for the game 1 round 1 recap as we give our thoughts, share some stats with you, and give our thoughts on the game and what happened, and look ahead to the following game. And you can look forward to one of those every night. We know that some of these longer episodes are a little difficult to listen to, or at least sit down and say, okay, I'm going to listen to this whole thing. But a 5-minute recap will be posted for each game on every platform: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that fun stuff. And then we'll actually post these on our Planet 76 podcast Instagram page as well, so that you can check it out there. And so just another resource that we're going to try and have available for you during this playoff run for the Philadelphia 76ers. So be on the lookout for that.
Sweet. I like it. Yes.
All right. You ready for this one?
Do it.
Now we're getting into some big ones. So 3 things left to go. Let's go with hot takes and prediction. I've got one hot take. It's not really that big of a hot take. If it's not bold enough, you can tell me. But I'll give mine first, and then you can think of one and hit me with one. So my bold prediction, hot take, whatever you want to call it, is that Tyrese Maxey is going to go for over 30 points in one game during this series. I think that's semi-hot, right? 40 is like insane. Like, that's hot. 30.
It's pretty good.
That's my bold prediction. I think one of these games, hopefully in Toronto, that'd be pretty freaking sick. But Tyrese Maxey's going over 30.
I'd like to see Embiid average 30 for the series. I think that's going to be.
That's a good
I don't know how hot that ranks on the scale, but I think regardless of that, I think it's going to be massive if Embiid can have some 30-point, 40-point games. Yeah. Obviously, because he's the best player, but I just think overall it's going to help uplift the team on nights where Toronto just absolutely clamps up everyone else, whether it be Harden, whether it be Maxey, whatever the case is.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a good one. I think even if you want to get real hot, not real hot, but a bolder prediction of that, bold print, would be that Joel Embiid is going for 30 in every game.
I mean,
least.
It seems. I mean, he's the scoring champ now.
Let's go.
It's not that it's expected, but it's
Right.
something that he definitely can do for sure.
Yeah, well, and I think the hope
That would
is
be
too that we
ideally
don't
because
need that.
you don't want to have to.
Just
I
saying.
mean, like you can, but ideally you
Right.
don't want that. You want other guys to help Embiid
Right.
out and carry a bit of the scoring and a bit of everything else because Embiid really does so
Yeah.
much for the Sixers. So yeah.
Right. We don't want to see Joel average 35
Right.
and it be a 7-game series. Like, you know what I mean? So hopefully if he's at 25 a game and it's a 5-game series,
Yes.
we will
Yes.
5-game series in our favor. We'll gladly take it. Again, we have no idea how this thing's going to go, but we're glad you're along with the ride here on the round 1 preview of the first round again of Toronto and Philadelphia. Starting this weekend.
I
don't
saw
know,
a
have they announced
commercial
what
said
day
the
yet?
playoffs start April 17th, but I also saw something else saying they start the 16th, so I have no idea. Yeah.
I would think the 16th is Saturday. So I don't know if Sixers will play Saturday or Sunday.
Yes.
We're recording Sunday night the 10th, so that's why we don't know yet. Yes. Yeah, all right. You ready for
Let's do
Factor
it.
Cap?
Woo!
Let's do this. All right, I've got 4 for you. Factor Cap and over or under. So if it's a factual statement, you're like, yeah, that's going to happen. Say fact. If it's not, you say cap and try and give me an explanation. So the first one, James Harden will finish 3rd or better in this series in points per game, combining both teams together. So you got James Harden, you've got Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, you got Siakam, you got Van Fleet, you got Anunoby, you got Gary Trent. So James Harden will finish 1st, 2nd, or 3rd in points per game out of all of those names.
I think Van Vliet, I think Siakam, I think Embiid will average more points. Not necessarily translating into a win for the Raptors or Sixers, but I think Van Vliet would probably average a little more. I think Siakam might average a little more. I think Embiid would definitely average more than everyone, but but yeah, I think so.
So that one's cap, huh? All right. Second, Tobias Harris. I noticed last year, I was going to say he's going to average more or less than his points per game in last year's playoffs, but his points per game in last year's playoffs were very good. He
played
up
well.
Around 21 and a half, I think, if I recall. He sure did. So I took it down a little bit to make it a little more difficult. I said Tobias Harris will be over or under 18 points per game.
I'll say this: I think if they get 18 out of Harris, they're gonna win the series. But I think under. I think it may be a little under. I think maybe 17. But 18 would be anything over 18. I think the Sixers win the series.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. 17 or 18 in that range is probably a good number for an over/under. All right. So, fact or cap? This series goes 7 games.
I don't know. I don't know if I see it going 7. I would say at the very least, at the very max, I'd say.
Don't tell me who wins yet.
I'll say 6. I'll say 6. I don't know. I mean, like,
okay.
What do you I don't.
All right. So he's. Oh my goodness! If you asked me that question, fact or cap, the series going 7, I would probably.
Yeah.
I think it's. I feel like more likely it's less, but I'm still gonna say this series is going 7 games because I can definitely see it going 7 games.
I can see it
I'll
going
say
7,
I'll
but
say fact.
Also, I'm thinking, will it really go 7? I'm leaning more towards 6, but I'm also thinking,
right.
Well, it definitely could because if the Sixers lose both games in Toronto, it's not good. That's not good.
Whew, all right. That's a tough one. That is a tough one. Okay. Now, before we get to our predictions, because you are going to have to give one, sir.
I'm ready.
Just saying.
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. So, finish this statement for me. The 76ers will win this series if ...
Something a little more baseline. If they win at least 1 game in Toronto,
Okay.
I think they'll win the series. But they'll win the series if James Harden actually is efficient as a scorer That's no. It doesn't count. That's dumb.
I see what you're saying. Give me a percentage.
That's not a
right.
good. That's not a good. They win the series if. I don't even know. I mean, Embiid's gonna have to have a great series. I mean, if Harris averages 19 or more, they win the series.
Okay. There you go.
That's a better one.
Whew. I hope they can win it if he's less. I'm just gonna say.
True.
All right. Second one, the Raptors. We're fair here. The Raptors will win this series if, and it cannot be that Tobias is less than 19 a game.
No, I know. If the Raptors win more than 2 games in Philadelphia, they win the series. If, I think mathematically it works out anyway, or if Siakam averages more than 25, they win the series.
More than 25, okay.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay, I could see that happening too.
Yeah.
All right, and now, the moment we've all been waiting for.
Not me.
You want me to go first?
Yes.
All right, Raptors Sixers round 1 predictions. The 4-5 matchup. James Harden, Joel Embiid on the Sixers teaming up together in the playoffs, baby. We're almost here. Anyway, round 1 prediction. I do see this going 7 games. Full disclosure, I do. I just do. When you're this conflicted on what the heck's going to happen, it's safe to just say, yep, 7. So I think it's going to be a split in Philadelphia, the first 2. I think it'll be 1-1. I think it'll be a split in Toronto. I think it'll be 2-2 after that trip. And then a 3-game series, 2 in Philadelphia. I'm going to say Sixers take care of business in Game 5. So that means it's got to be Toronto takes care of business in Game 6 on their home floor. And then Game 7 at our place this time. Remember what happened last time with these punks? Game 7 at the Wells Fargo Center. I'm going to say Joel Embiid's going to have a monster night. He's not going to be crying anymore, and we're going to win this thing. Joel Embiid's going for 45 in Game 7 at the Wells Fargo Center. Book it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Nice.
You're up.
Cool. Round 1 predictions. Sixers win at 5.
What? That's it.
That's it.
We love to hear it. I hope you're right and I'm not, because it'll save me a couple years in life. I'll be too stressed, bro. Okay. And I know you're not like, I mean, you're confident, but you're not like, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
I'm not holding anybody to that.
So what would that look like? We win the first 2 at home?
First 2 at home, and then they'd have to win at least 1 in Toronto.
Right.
And then come back and win 2 more. What is it?
Yep.
2 at home, 1 in Toronto, 2 at home, 1 in Toronto? Or
2-2, 1-1-1. So 2 at home, 2 in Toronto, and then 1.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're right.
1,
If
1.
Sixers won the first 2, Raptors win 1 of 2 at their place, it's 3-1 coming back to the center, which would be ideal.
2 here, 1 in Toronto.
Nope.
Come back, win.
2 here, 2 in Toronto.
No, like win 1.
Oh, gotcha.
Win 1 in Toronto, lose the other one.
Right.
2 here, win 1 in Toronto, come back, win 2 more.
Win 1 more.
And then you go back to Toronto.
Nope. It'd be a game.
Wait, what?
So if Sixers win in 5, it's over. At Philly.
No. I know. They win 2 and they win. They go up 2-0 here.
Yeah.
They go to Toronto. They
split.
Go up 3-1.
And then they come back.
And they come home and win another one.
Right. So 4-1. I like it.
Yes.
I like it. I if the Sixers go up 3-1 and come back to the Wells Fargo Center with a chance to close it out, that's going to feel really freaking good.
You got it. You just got to do it. Yeah.
You got to do it. You don't want to go back to Toronto. You just don't.
No.
You don't want to go back to Toronto. You don't want to go back there without Matisse, man. Let's just take care of business and move on. All right. I like it. I don't know. I mean, do you have anything else, man? We covered a lot of ground here in this round 1 preview. Whew. Anything you want to say to Doc Rivers?
I mean, Doc Rivers, a lot of this is on you, man. You need to do the right things. You need to, if he's just average, if he's just good, I think the Sixers win this series. If he sucks, then there's going to be a lot of issues, and
he's gone. Maybe.
I mean,
I hope.
Yeah,
he won't be.
That's got to be the next step. I'm kind of in that same boat too. I don't know if that is going to happen. It should. I think if things fold,
right.
I think he should be. I think they should be like, hey, listen, dude, hit the road. You're gone. But I don't know if they'll do that. That's the thing.
I agree. I agree. I will say this. One thing I forgot. Doc Rivers, I believe, was quoted this week regarding playoff backup big man rotation. Said that against smaller teams will play Paul Reed and will play DeAndre Jordan. Is that what he said?
Yes.
Okay. The tallest man on Toronto Raptors is 6'9". So, will he put his money where his mouth is?
Probably not.
I know you're throwing a thumbs down at the idea that he said, but
no, I'm throwing 2 at him.
Right.
Because the reason is fine, but I think he's just making excuses, to be honest.
We'll see. If Paul Reed doesn't get any burn in Game 1, and I'm in the press conference afterward, I'm going to say exactly what I just said. I'm going to say the tallest man on the Toronto Raptors is 6'9".
Yeah.
2 days ago, you just said that if they play a smaller team, he's going to play. Because I, for one, think that Paul Reed matches up fantastically with some of these guys. He's kind of the same dude as some of these opposing players.
It's funny because my post for tomorrow on my page says exactly that. What are you hacking my phone? My notes on my phone?
Yes, sir. Wow.
Hacker, man.
But it's true. Scotty Barnes, Siakam, who's the Precious Achua? He's still Achua. Yeah. He's the same guy. So let him play. Man, it's going to be interesting.
Not wrong.
Because I'm
not wrong.
I'm thrilled that Doc said that at least. I think it's a step. I wish he would say more, but he says that. Now let's see what happens. Let's see what happens.
Let's act on it now.
Round 1 starts in just a little while. We hope that you enjoyed this Round 1 preview episode. We hope you look forward to those Planet 765 episode recaps of each game. So we'll be here for more full-length episodes as well throughout the week. And so go Sixers. We will see you next time on Planet 76.
Woo!
You just listened to an episode of the Planet 76 podcast. Hey, we appreciate you joining us for this episode. Whatever platform you're on, why don't you hit that subscribe button for us, and we'll see you next time.